If you're coming to Malta and looking for inspiration of things to do whilst on the island, stay tuned because in this video we'll go through our itinerary for what we did on 7 days here. Where we've used tour providers for any of the trips, we'll leave details in the description so that if you want to do any of the excursions you'll be able to find who to contact. Day 1, we arrived early in the morning and we were at our hotel before lunch. We stayed at the DB San Antonio in St Paul's Bay, which is about a 30-minute transfer from the airport. We spent the first day familiarising ourselves with the hotel and its surroundings and spent some time by the pool to relax after our flight. Day 2 was our first full day on the island and we explored it with a local guide, Grant, from Malta Land Tours. We saw lots of famous sites such as Mdina, the former capital of Malta, and the Red Tower, as well as finding some hidden gems less frequented by tourists, such as these stunning rock pools used for swimming. We also visited Master Schlocks and saw lots of traditional boats and the very picturesque quayside. This was an 8-hour excursion and it was a long day, but we got to see so much of the island early on. Day 3. For our third day, we chilled by the pool in the morning and then went to Meridiana Wine Estate in the afternoon. Here we toured the winery, learning about the history of the area and some of the processes for making local wines. We got to try 4 Maltese wines and had a selection of local food to accompany the experience. One of my favourite facts from the day was that when the grapes are ready to be picked, they need extra workers over and above the farmers who typically look after the vines, as it's done by hand, and the winery hires local pensioners for a couple of weeks to help with the harvest of the grapes. Day 4. On our 4th day, we got the ferry to the nearby island of Gozo. Similar to our 2nd day, this was done with the local driver, Lee, from Mio Cars. They had a selection of different tours as well as rental cars. Again, we saw highlights from the island that most tourists will see, such as the Citadel, which is a fortified town in the centre of the island, similar to Mdina on Malta, the Neolithic temple with ruins dating back thousands of years, and the church Tapinu, which is known for its miracle healing, especially of children, and has garments on display from children supposedly healed by prayer from this church, as well as some sites slightly off the beaten track, such as Mixter Cave and Sanap Cliffs. If you're finding this itinerary useful, please consider hitting the subscribe button or giving the video a like, as it really helps small creators like ourselves. Day 5, we caught the bus to Valletta and explored Malta's capital, along with the 3 cities. In hindsight, this meant we had 2 quite heavy days of activities back to back, and we would have probably benefited from a rest day in between. We did this to avoid a busier day of cruise ship stocking to hopefully get a quieter experience of the city. In Valletta and the 3 cities, we got the most use out of our Malta Heritage Pass, visiting places like Grandmaster's Palace and the Fort. Whilst the streets were packed, as were things like Upper Barak Gardens, many of the museums were quiet, and if like us you want to visit a lot of the museums, you may want to allow for more time than just 1 day for Valletta and the 3 cities combined. If you only want to do 1 or 2 sites, 1 day might be more than enough. There are some sites that are at certain times. For instance, if you're in and around Upper Barak Gardens at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, you may get to see the cannon being fired to mark the time. To get from Valletta to the 3 cities, there are a couple of different options for crossing the water. There is a ferry shuttle service which runs frequently, and there's also traditional boats. We took the ferry in one direction and the more traditional boats back the other way. Both options were similarly priced. You may have to wait slightly longer for the shuttle ferry initially, however it can carry much more people at once. There may appear to be a longer queue for the traditional boats, however they come frequently. Just as one crosses the water, it'll refill and cross back, which means that any queue that is there goes down really quickly. And using the traditional boats is more of an experience in itself. Day 6 was scheduled as a rest day. We spent the day by the pool. However, being at St Paul's Bay, there is also the National Aquarium of Malta, which is open until 8 p.m. So in the late afternoon, we took a walk along the promenade from our hotel and spent a couple of hours looking at fish. They had a shark tunnel and piranhas, as well as a submarine simulator, which the children absolutely adored. Elias wants to be a marine biologist, so visiting the aquarium seemed to be something he loved.
So cool.
This was a surprise addition to our trip. It's not something we'd pre-planned and something we were able to do with the Heritage Malta Pass, given free entry. Day 7 was our last full day in Malta and we took a private boat tour with Neville from Comino Waves. We visited the infamous Blue Lagoon, but we also saw other parts of the island. We loved Crystal Lagoon for snorkelling, as well as St Mary's Bay, where we grabbed some snacks on the sandy beach. If you have water babies like us, it's definitely a trip not to be missed. Just bear in mind, Malta are limiting numbers to go to the Blue Lagoon, so book your slot ahead of time for visiting Comino. To get to Valletta, we used the bus, but other than that, to get places we visited or to pick up and drop off points, we've used local taxis. There are 3 main types on the island. You have Uber, Bolt and eCab. Different taxis seem to be different rates at different times, so it's probably worth having at least 1 or 2 on your phone so that you can compare before booking. If you're planning a trip to Malta, I hope you found this information useful. If you're interested in finding out more about any of the trips that we've done, we'll leave the information down below in the description for all the companies that we've used to do the trips. We'll also be following up with a dedicated video for each trip, which will also provide more information. So if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to make sure that you don't miss out. And join us next time as we show the base that we've used to explore out from on the island of Malta, the DB San Antonio, and I'll put the video for that right here. Thank you for watching. Bye now.